Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome, and thank you for joining us to the Cultivating Conversation series. My name is Jihan Jishti. I'm the head of strategy, partnerships, and delivery monitoring within OCP Africa, and I will be moderating the session today. We are very pleased to have all you joining as our guests, and we look forward to introducing you to our distinguished guests. There are undoubtedly shifts in the agriculture sector and our food systems that need to happen if we are to attain sustainable development goals by 2030. It is also undeniable that youth must be at the table for these discussions and change. After all, it is the youth who will be living the reality of the changes in years to come. We have convened this session to discuss barriers through transformation food systems. We look forward to delving deeper into the role of youth with our panelists. Again, welcome to this session, The Future of Our Food Systems, Empowering Youth.
As we all know, COVID-19 has plunged our world into one of the biggest crises of the recent history. And this crisis comes above the already existing crisis, like 700 million people already living in hunger. We have 2 billion people who don't have access to safe, affordable, and nutritious food. And we have 1.6 billion people with obesity. And on the other hand, we have a food loss of, I would say, 1/3 of our produced food. And we are still losing biodiversity, and we have environmental problems. Look to climate change. And if there is one moment to unite, it's now as countries. But not only as countries, but also, I would say, as all stakeholders. And especially when we look to the youth, because we always speak about empowering of youth. And of course, everybody agrees to it. You cannot be against it. But how are we going to make that concrete? Because we need bold decisions. We need decisive decisions also at the World Food Systems Summit to show how we can transform our food systems in a more sustainable way, in a more equal way, but especially that we have access to nutritious food for all. And for that, we need the youth. And when you look, for example, to Africa, we need per year now 20 million jobs per year for the youth. Africa is faced with an enormous growth, especially, of course, with younger people in the next coming years. How are we going to find those jobs? And of course, we have mentioned solutions. We have to, for example, give them access to finance. We have to access to new technologies. We have to involve them in the value chain. But how are we going to do that? And is it up to us to decide, or should we give them a place in the decision-making machinery? That's why I always strived in New York as ambassador to give the youth a place at the negotiation table. There are so many jobs for the youth, not only as farmers, but there are many jobs in the whole food system, the whole value chain, about marketing, market access. There we have to attract the youth. And one of the instruments, of course, what I've seen in the Netherlands, but I've seen it also in Asia and Africa, are startups. Give funding to the youth for them to start a business. Give them access to innovations. Give them access to technology. I think that's the way how we should do it. Luckily, we're working with the Food Systems Summit and certainly with you, but only if we give them a part of the solution, part of the voice for the solution that will be given during the Food Systems Summit. FAO is organizing now a youth food forum where the youth is in charge, because I think they are so creative and we need their creativity. We have the past, they have the future. Thank you.
Right now, we are at the margin of the food system processes, and being one of the food system champion, we've been able to organize close to 43 food system summit dialogues, independent dialogues in Africa, Americas, in the Latin America. And right now, we want to find a niche whereby we think the mission can actually support what young people are doing in their various constituencies. And with that, I will really be grateful, Ambassador, to know how far and how much resources are available to support the young people to leverage their efforts at the Food System Summit.
Thank you very much for your questions. I think when it comes to, of course, we always need resources, and but I think there we have to be creative as well. I'm a strong advocate for finding resources for, as I said already, for startups. We succeeded in some countries to start with that, to support that. But certainly with your involvement and participation in the process of the Food Systems Summit, I think if we are joining forces, there are more resources available, and we should not only look to the government. I know that also international organizations like IFAD, but also I'm working also with the EAT Foundation, working with the Rockefeller Foundations. They are willing to support participation as well. But it's also very important, and that we have to do together. And I will certainly raise it again, for example, in the next FVO Council, because I'm also chair of the program committee, that we ask the member states, who are sending a delegation to the Food Systems Summit, the pre-summit, to make sure that at least 1 or 2 young people are part of their delegation, so that they can take the floor. And I will do everything, if that's not feasible, if some are not able to, I will support you to make sure that your voices are heard. I know that certainly the special envoy is more than willing and already decided to give you a special place as the youth in advocating for the actions you want to see in the outcome of the Food Systems Summit. And approach me directly, I will support you all the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Desiree, I believe, and thank you, His Excellency, for answering these questions. I like the focus that has been done a bit on Africa, because it's particularly in the continent, the youth is a major question. In the same time, also an opportunity because of all the innovation that can come through the youth if we have the tools to be able to listen to that to youth. So one of the idea that we've been thinking of within OCP is to have to put in place an observatory to be able to map and understand the expectations of youth. So tell me, His Excellency, what do you think of such an idea of creating a space where decision makers can listen to young people to inform better their decisions and to better inform also the policy that can happen, especially in the context of the UN Food Systems Summit?
Crucial question, and you know me, I will be for 1000% behind your idea. Not only because it's an excellent idea, because it's what we need. And often we think in problems. You mentioned Africa, but you can also look to Asia and to Latin America. And often you see between 20 or 40% of the youth is unemployed, not because they want to, but because they cannot find a job. For that, we need a space where things can come together, also with the ideas. And when we speak about supporting this idea, let's not only focus, because I will work hard with you to get the support of all the member states, certainly within Rome. I'm quite active also, for example, in the food loss area with the Champions 12.3, where a lot of companies are participating, are members of that group. They are also willing to listen to the youth, get their new ideas, not only because it's needed, but because they need it for their companies. Because when they look to the future of their companies, they need the youth. So let's create that space. And let's make sure that we can launch it at the pre-summit in July in Rome. Thank you.
My name is Yonika Piri. I'm a smallholder farmer from Zambia. I run a company called Amicus Zambia Limited, as well as an association called Zambia Young Emerging Farmers Association here in Zambia, where we look to encourage young people to get into farming as a business and create their own employment. I found myself in agriculture, contrary to what I studied. I think it's due to the passion that I had for growing fruits and vegetables. I was raised by my mom. I lost my dad at a very young age, so to make ends meet, would have to sustain ourselves by engaging in various activities. And one of the activities that my mom encouraged us to go into was farming at a small scale. So whatever we would harvest, we would sell the excess and have enough money to get by. And that's what put me through to school to university. It's some of the agriculture activities that I started doing at a very young age. There are quite a lot of opportunities for young people in agriculture, and I say this because I think I've passed through so many challenges, and I think it's not right for me to say yes. There's so many challenges, but I think the opportunities outweigh the challenges that are there in the agriculture sector. You get to be your own boss. You get to work according to your time. You get to interact with young people in various aspects of different value chains. And I've also seen a rise in young people that are participating in agriculture, because I think there isn't enough employment creation out there, especially in the formal sector. So as much as I have a bachelor's degree and other qualifications, I'm still able to to participate in agriculture. So it doesn't mean that just because you haven't gone to school, then you should go into agriculture, or you've gone to school, you should go into agriculture. It's about the opportunities that are there. And I think the various networks that I've been connected to across the continent, not only here in Africa, but in Asia and Europe, where I have been connected to young people that are also engaged in agriculture. Yes, barriers are there, in terms of access to finance, access to some of, storage facilities. So as you go in, yes, you face major challenges, but you have to be so versatile to move and adapt, and not only position yourself to one particular sector. When I started, I used to engage in fruits and vegetables, but because I had problems in accessing cold storage facilities, I diverted and went into legumes. So now we're growing beans, which we're supplying the local market, and there are quite a lot of opportunities that young people can find in the agriculture sector.
You are a young person yourself. You also work with young people. You work with policymakers. Do you think young people that you interact with know some of the channels and ways through which they can actually have their voices heard at some of the policy-making platforms that, like this one and many others that you are part of? And what do you think could be done actually to help them really have their voices to reach at these places?
I remember when I started my advocacy for youth and women in agriculture, it wasn't an easy journey. Being a young person, people would think maybe I was speaking because I had political ambitions, that kind of thing. But I just didn't stop talking. I talked until people listened to me, because I was actually practicing what I was preaching. I'm coming from an agricultural background, so being put on panels where I get to interact with policymakers, I get to interact with organizations that are involved in the agriculture sector. It's an opportunity for me to, sort of like share my experiences in terms of what actually works and what actually doesn't work. So, I find myself in positions where I tend to advise people on certain projects even before they're launched, depending on the kind of experiences that I've encountered. So, to what I can say to young people out there, you just can't talk without doing it. So you're better off doing it, because then it gives you some sort of leverage, because you're going through it and you have firsthand experience of the challenges that you're facing.
I founded AgriCorps about 8 years ago, which builds capacity and creates an enabling environment for school-based agricultural education, primarily in sub-Saharan Africa. But before I talk about what we do, I think it's important to back up a little bit and define youth, because youth tends to be a really large subsection of people around the world. And I like to divide it into two different buckets, because there's really two different sets of interventions that are important for these two specific buckets of youth. The first is school-aged youth that are typically 18 and under. And the other, and in sub-Saharan Africa, almost 50% of the total population of over 1 billion people are under the age of 18. And the other subcategory or other bucket of youth would be young adult youth. So those aged 19 to 35. And there are really two specific sets of interventions for those specific groups. Where we work is with that school-aged section of youth. And we believe that the best way to reach that group is through school-based agricultural education. And we believe that school-based agricultural education can be a game-changing solution to encourage more young people to enter into agriculture and to see the career opportunities that are available from production all the way across the value chain. But SBAE, or school-based agricultural education, is a 100-year-old model to diffuse agricultural innovations into rural communities through youth in schools. So when we talk about SBAE, there are really two core objectives. The first is youth development, so improving the academic, vocational, and life skills of young people, of school-age youth. But the second is improving rural livelihoods by diffusing improved agricultural technologies or innovations or methodologies to adult farmers through youth as early adopters and change agents. So the way that we do this is our system of school-based agricultural education. So on the left-hand side, you'll see this is where the innovations and the innovators come on from the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Education and the private sector in developing those innovations that can improve rural livelihoods in the agriculture sector. Those are transferred over to agriculture teachers. We primarily work with junior high students, but also senior high students in schools. So training those teachers who take those innovations back into rural communities, into a rural school through a 4-component model of school-based agricultural education to improve youth outcomes that we talked about earlier. As adults and parents see their own children improving in their competence, in their incomes, and their confidence, they begin to adopt those same innovations and technologies and improve their own livelihoods. That 4-component model starts with classroom instruction, which is what we typically think of when we think of schools and school-based education. The second component is a school demonstration farm. So not only do the students have the opportunity to demonstrate and to experience what they've learned in the classroom, but they also have the chance to demonstrate to farmers in the community what those improved innovations can do. A home entrepreneurship project allows students to learn and earn, to make money, to start their own small business, but also to create that little micro demonstration plot on their parents' home farm or in their backyard so that their parents and other farmers can see those improved demonstrations. And then leadership development, where students have the opportunity to improve their life skills, such as public speaking or how to run a meeting, that help them in civil society through a farmers cooperative or other types of both economic and civil society mechanisms in the future. So when we talk about school-based agricultural education, that is what we're talking about, is being able to improve not only youth development, but also rural livelihoods. We have just launched the movement to advance school-based agricultural education in sub-Saharan Africa. And we are working with partners from around the globe. We've just launched a large research project in Liberia. It's a randomized controlled trial. We are partnering with the World Bank, with Northwestern University, USAID, and the National Science Foundation in the United States to measure the impact that SBAE can have on both youth and adults in these rural communities. So again, as we talk about youth and agriculture, we believe that starting conversation ought to be with school-age youth. We need more unikies and other young, progressive farmers out there. But the only way that we can get them is if we start early when they are still young and in schools. And we hope that school-based agriculture education can be a game-changing solution within this Food System Summit.
But since you are focusing on school-based education at an earlier stage, I would like to ask maybe about the link from the primary school all the way to university in agriculture. What could be the link and the importance of having this link?
Absolutely. Great question. Appreciate your work with IAAS, Omar. That's fantastic. So I would say there's really two links as we talk about connecting colleges and universities to school-based agricultural education. The first is when we talk about teacher education, and in order to have strong school-based agricultural education links, we need teacher training colleges and universities to promote agricultural education as a key feature to training teachers to go back into rural communities, in junior high schools and in senior high schools, to be an agriculture instructor. I'm from a small town of 800 people in rural West Texas. I'm a cattle rancher, a farmer, but I had an agriculture instructor who inspired me to pursue a broader path within agriculture. And it was all because of the work of that agriculture teacher and his education that he had at a university. Second is making sure that whenever we're reaching those school-age youth, especially in junior and senior high school, that we make them aware of the educational opportunities there are in agriculture at that university level. What we're finding is that in Ghana, one of the places where we work, we've taken we have some research that suggests that students who have participated in 4-H Ghana and school-based agriculture education have a 40% increased chance to desire to study agriculture in college. And that's simply because they had an agriculture teacher in high school that made them aware of those opportunities. So I think making them aware of the professionalization of agriculture through academics in college and connecting those links between school, secondary and tertiary education.
Thank you so much, OCP North America, for having me in this panel. And I learned a lot from the panelists and from their experiences and the amazing exchange that they had. I'm Bassem Hamid from Mohammed VI Polytechnic University, and I work at Startgate, which is the innovation and entrepreneurship platform of Mohammed VI Polytechnic University. And actually, I'm here to present the African Youth Climate Hub, which is an initiative launched by Her Royal Highness Lalla Hasna at the Climate Action Summit in 2019. This initiative is mainly a formal partnership between Mohammed VI Polytechnic University, OCP Group, the Foundation of Mohammed VI for Environmental Protection, and UNGO, which is one of the constituencies of the United Nations. This initiative came to bolster and to support and empower young entrepreneurs and young actions and activists mainly working towards climate and eradicating climate change. So the initiative is mainly composed of two main components, a virtual platform and a physical platform. A virtual platform because we are a connected generation, and miracles can just happen from connecting people. A lot of startups can emerge, a lot of businesses can just start, and a lot of conversations can be led and shared through virtual interactions. This is why the virtual platform. For just to give some insights about the virtual platform and the numbers that we achieved until now. So we have in our platform, the African Climate Hub, we have over 7,000 registrants and people who are interacting within the platform. We reached in our within our social media over 2 million people virtually, and this just since the inception of the initiative back in 2019. For the physical platform, it is decentralized between Mohammed VI Polytechnic University and Hassan II International Center for Environmental Training, and a lot of things are happening within those two sites for the African Youth Climate Hub. The components of the initiative mainly are six, which is we have an incubator, which is going to support and incubate innovative ideas that tackles mainly three clusters: energy efficiency, water consumption, and climate literacy, mainly the educational part of climate literacy. And this is where the University of Mohammed VI Polytechnic came to support this approach and to support the educational part of it by providing real scale labs, mainly the experimental farm, which is supporting real scale experimentations, and to support farmers to tackle, and even researchers to push their spin-offs. And within the experience with the experimental farm and within Mohammed VI Polytechnic University, we've been supporting smallholder farmers, and this by offering our platforms and labs and all the other capabilities that the experimental farm can provide. And this is one of the components that our startups, the selected startups within Aish, the Aish incubation program, can benefit from. And for the work mainly that the university side of Aish, we've been supporting also in the second component or aside of the Aish incubation program, we've been supporting with the e-learning part, which is covering, which is a MOOC of three big courses. Tackling again climate literacy, the agriculture part of it within a special focus on Africa and being positioned in a proactive as a proactive player to fight climate change. We have also energy efficiency, and we have water consumption. That's it from the two bricks for the e-learning part and for the incubation part. Both facilities of UM6P and Hassan II Environmental Protection Center, they will be provided for those startups to experiment, to prototype, and to test their innovative solutions, and to push them and open up the ecosystem so they can have a direct impact on agriculture, or on agriculture, smaller farmers within a regional realm, or even on an African from an African perspective.
At international level, I would ask Mr. Abdelhamid Bazi, from his experience, how can we promote African youth participation in the international decision-making bodies on food systems? And at the national level, so meaning at our countries, if he could choose only two aspects of public policies that could be implemented and be game changers for the youth in Africa to contribute to the future of food system, what would they be? And last, knowing our specific situation in Africa, how does he see multilingualism in the context of mobilizing the youth to contribute by sharing ideas, projects, building capacity without leaving no one behind in the future of food systems?
Thank you so much, Elsa. Thank you so much. I try to take notes. So just to pick up on your first question, which is how to engage youth internationally. I'm going to give you a clear example. For the African Youth Climate Hub, we were pushing for two, or we created two platforms, a virtual and a physical one. And taking into consideration our interconnected generation, it's very important to focus on the virtual aspects and to push for the co-creation and cross-pollination that can happen between these young people, and support the voices of young people to come up. A lot of things, a lot of miracles can happen just virtually, and a lot of value can be pushed to the ecosystems developed in developing world. So I will be pushing from my side, through my experience for virtual engagement and virtual empowerment. And I believe that's what's working actually in our times in the current situation. For the second question, which is the two aspects to consider in the public policy. The two aspects mainly I will be within Stargate. I'll give you another concrete example that we are leading on the ground. How we are trying to engage young people to push their ideas to the ground and bringing investors and engaging portfolios and hedge funds to engage with our startups is mainly by opening up and creating a safe space for those startups, which is by bringing the governments also. It's mainly a B2G approach, which is very important to support what we call at the university, the innovation helix model. The innovation helix model which is something very, very important. It will go briefly. Innovation helix model, which is mainly involving the government, the universities, and the private sector into this collective intelligence interaction. So that's one, to engage the government and to make it easier for startups to enter the markets. So that's another public aspects to consider or regulatory aspects to consider.
I'm just wondering from a definition standpoint, how are we quantifying youth here? 0 to what age? And then the other question I had, how can we be more involved and supportive of the effort in planning the UN Food Systems Summit? We'd like to be a wonderful resource in the best way we can for you.
On the age, typically globally, it is under the age of 35, which is why I broke it down into these two buckets of school-age youth and young adult youth, because they're two separate sets of interventions. And I think that we need to specify which bucket of youth we're talking about with which intervention. And on the school-age youth, my organization, the Movement for School-Based Agriculture Education, and a number of other global partners are pushing to get school-based agriculture education featured as a game-changing solution for the Food System Summit. So anything that the USGLC or the Sorghum Board could help with in those regards, I sent you a direct message with my contact information, so please feel free to reach out.
And lastly, we firmly believe the Sustainable Development Goals and the resilient food system cannot be attained without you. By you, I mean the youth, young farmers specifically. So please continue to engage, to learn, and to connect with resources available to you.